Hi, welcome to another lesson in this series. We are going to look at how to integrate Redux into our application, as mentioned in the earlier lesson. So let's get right into it. So we're going to install a couple of libraries. So first one obviously is Redux. Second one is Redux Tank, and it's a middleware. I will show you what it does later on. And then the next one is React Redux. So let's install these for now. And if you don't know what Redux is it gives you a way to have a centralized store where all your data is, and you can access them anywhere in your application in any component. So how do we integrate this into our application? So first of all, what we need to do is to create a store. So let me create a directory here called Redux, and in it I'm going to create a store file, so store.js. So what is a store? So a store is like it's a class kind of an object, and when we create a store, we will be passing it to our application so that the root app, will get any data that the store will contain. So Redux come with a create store function that we can use. So let's import from Redux the function create store, and create store will create a store and return it. So let's store it in a store variable and then export it by default. All right, now, so we've created a store and we've exported it. Let's go into our index file and use this store that we've created here. So this is a simple store. It does nothing, it just contains, it's just a Redux store. So let's integrate it into our React application. So we are going to import our store. So import store from Redux. Sorry. So I think I didn't create a directory in the right place. It should supposed to be in the source file. Yeah, sorry, source directory. So source and then Redux. Yeah. So we Redux then store. So now we need a way to let our application know about this store, and the React Redux module come with a way to do that. So React Redux have something called a provider that we can use. So we are going to wrap the provider around the whole application, and then the provider has an attribute called store. We're going to provide a store, pass that store to it, and that is it. We've integrated our store into our React application, but it does nothing actually. So what will we do? So this create store accepts a reducer. It accepts a reducer and some other stuff that it uses to achieve its purpose. So we are going to um, create a reducer. So a reducer is kind of a way to manage the data. Uh, when you want to know more about reducers, you can go to the Redux um, documentation and then check on what. The documentation here says reducers specify how the application state changes in response to actions sent to the store. So when an action is sent to the store, the reducer determines how the um, store changes. So we're going to create a reducer for our contact. So let's create a directory first called contacts. And in it, we will create our reducer. And what is a reducer anyway? A reducer is just a function that accepts two arguments. So our reducer here, that's the contact reducer. Will accept, it's a function that will accept a state, that is the state, our state, our contact state, and then accept actions that are being passed. And the function is supposed to return a state. So this is kind of like initial state or the current state. And then we will do some changes depending on the action here, and then we return the new state. So we are going to use switch for this. So what we are going to be listening on is the action.type. So depending on the type, we respond. So when the type is, say, add contact, we will do something here. By default, it should return our state. Now, we are going to, this is, I want to implement this as a constant so we can use it somewhere else. So the way we name it is action types. They are the types. So action types.js, and this action type will be exported and it will be named contact, add contact, and we will import it here. All right, so we are going to, what are we going to do when the type is action type, when the action that has been dispatched is an action type? So what we want to do is we want to add it to our state. Now let's create an initial state here. Which is an object, and it will contain all contacts, which will be an array. And let's pass it as the default for the state here. So what we want to do is, when it is an add action, we want to get the payload that is coming in. So normally the action comes with type and any other data that you pass, and we are going to pass a payload later. So what we want to do is we want to add it to this all contacts here. So we will return another object and spread the current state, and then in addition, and to we will return it. So return, yeah, and we are going to modify our all contacts. So what we want to do is we want to spread out the all contact, the contact we have at that moment. We want to spread it out, and then we will add up the new payload. So action.payload, we will add it to it, and it will be updating the all contact. Now let's return this. So return default, sorry, export. Sorry, my bad. So export default contact reducer, and now we are going to import it in here. So we're going to port um, from contact. So contact reducer. Going to import it, reducer. Yeah, so that's it. And now we are going to add this contact reducer to the store. But let's say you have a couple of, let's say in addition to this contact reducer, we have another reducer called maybe label reducer. So we will need a way to combine the two together and then pass it to our store so the store knows about our reducer. So there is a combine reducers function that will combine all our reducers and merge it into one reducer. So we are going to use that to combine. So currently we have only one. Later on we can add. So we combine it and we pass it to the create store. And that's it. So we have our store and we've created it, we've returned it, and we are using it in here. Now, currently, how do we dispatch an action, the add action, whenever we create a contact so that it will accept, it will notice and add it to it? And how do we also pull this all contact and use in our application? So inside our Redux, we're going to add, so inside our contact, we're going to add actions. Actions. Now, before we add an action, you remember I added Redux Tank. So Redux Tank is a middleware that enables us to write our actions differently from the way we write it. So normally our actions will return just the type, an object with a type and maybe additional data. But with Redux Tank, it helps us to do asynchronous stuff. So we'll rather dispatch another we rather return another action, sorry, another function. So let me demonstrate it. So constant add contact, and we'll pass our contact here. And this, because of Redux Tank, we are going to, instead of returning an action, we will return another function, and this function will be the one to return the action. So our action is an object with a type, which will be add contact, and with the payload, which will be our contact. Yeah, but we can't just do this. We can't just return it like this. We need to, the second function that we are returning actually accepts a dispatch function. So we rather use that to dispatch our type here. So like this, and we dispatch it, and it will dispatch it to the store for us. We will later see the importance of Redux Tank when we get to doing fetching of data from from online from an API. But currently, we will just use it and return another function that accepts a dispatch, and the dispatch dispatches our action. But let's export it so that we can use it. So how do we use this add contact action in our application? So when we go to our app.js file, let's do some cleanups before we continue. So we are no longer using these. We are not using this as well. Yeah, so that's okay for now. So there is a way we can trigger this action from our application, and it's done by using the connect higher order function provided by Redux. So connect, what connect will do is connect will accept some arguments, and then we'll return a function that will receive our application or our component. Now this connect accepts two arguments. And let's take note, the connect comes from the Redux library. So it accepts two arguments. These arguments are functions that return objects. And what they do is, the first one, which is called map state to props, which is a function that will return an object. What it does is it gives our app access to the state, the store state as a property. So if the state, like for example our contact state, can be accessed as a prop in here, so we can access it in our component as a property. So what this function accepts, it accepts a state as the first argument, and we will use this state to look for our contact state, the contact state that we defined here. But there is a problem with this. Let's say we want to change the name of our reducer. We cannot call it just contact reducer, so we will pass it an object rather, and then call it contact and do something like this. So we pass it to this new name called contact, and then it will be in this object. So we can add more reducers later. So now we can reference the contact state like the state.contact, and we can pass it to contact, which we will then access in as a property. So let's pass it as the first argument here, and we can then access it in our app components. So let's open it up and contact, yes. So we can then use this contact. So instead of using these values, we'll rather use contact. So let's take off this and then rather pass the contact as the data source. And then instead of setting, when we get the data, we set it, we rather do something else. We are going to dispatch that our action, that our add contact action here. So the way we get access to that is also by creating another one called map action, map actions to prop. And let's check the actual name that is used. Let's see, so it says map state to props, and then map dispatch to props. So it's not action, it's rather dispatch to props. And instead of accepting I'm a state, let's check it out. It accepts a dispatch instead. So we're going to pass a dispatch, and then instead of returning this, we're going to return our action, the add contact action. So we're going to name it add contact, and then we're going to dispatch. So it's a function where we will dispatch the add contact, and this add contact is our actual add contact, which accepts a contact which is being passed down. So it's like we are defining a function, this function which will be used in our application, and we are going to pass contact to it, and then when it accepts it here, it will dispatch the action which is in here and pass that contact to it. So let's add that as our second argument. So now we can access add contact to inside our props, and we can use that instead. So we're going to add it in here. So we're going to add an object with the data that is coming in from our form, and the key. Now instead of, because we are no longer using values, we now have contact, we rather use the length of the contact plus 1. So now we are calling add contact, which we got here, kind of courtesy of what we did down there, and this will dispatch it, give this data to this, it will dispatch it, and then the reducer will listen and then add it to our contact. Now because we are also listening, we are subscribing using this, subscribing to our contact, we can access our contact store. But let's access the all contacts inside our state instead of the actual state contact state object. So dot all contacts, and we pass that rather to contact, and that will give us the array, this array in here. All right, so let's check it out and see if it works. Well, there is one other thing I just remember we didn't do. So you remember we are using Redux Tank way of dispatching types, but we've not added it to our store here. So we are going to pass a second argument to our store here, create store. Let's see how we can, let's check the documentation and see how we can add middlewares to our our store. So now okay, let's check out the Redux Tank if they have a documentation for how to do that. Just want us to see how, if you are working with something new, you don't know how it's done, you just Google and get the right way of doing it. So yeah, the installation is here. So there is another method called apply middleware, which accepts a couple of middlewares and then apply them to our store. So we can import that as well, and then that will be the next one, and then that will accept our Redux Tank middleware. So we've imported it, Tank, and then we've applied the middleware, and we are passing to the store. So this should make our application work. Let's go and see if it works. So let's add a contact, and it's added. Let's add another contact, and it is added. Let's add another contact, added. So our integration of Redux works. So if you're a little confused, I will ask you to go over again, watch the whole video again so you can get a sense of it. Um, and if you need more explanation, hit me up in the comment section and I will help you out.